Hey everybody, Captain B-Nard here with your BHDL3 Week 4 recap and Week 5 preview. So, we're going to go ahead and just get right into this here by taking a closer look at our opponent for this week. And that, of course, was the Demolition Force, coached by Emerald Miner. Once again, an individual who we are no strangers to. This was our fourth encounter here on Scarlet and Violet. And this guy is a strong competitive battler, seasoned draft league participant, and, of course, a PokeTuber. So, taking a look at his full roster this season, top to bottom. The Pokemon that I was expecting him to bring 100% to this game were actually quite a lot of them. They were the Gouging Fire, the Mew, the Lucario, the Tinglu, and the Drifblim. So I thought he would bring all five of those Pokemon to this game guaranteed, as they seem to be the best ones to take on my squad. Now, as far as the sixth Pokemon is concerned, I was thinking there was a decent shot that he would bring either the Azumarill or the Reverum for that spot. So, and then finally, the rest of his Pokemon, those being the Serena, the Zebstrika, and the Cryogonal, I actually thought there was no shot of him bringing, um, or at least virtually no shot of him bringing any of those, simply because the Serena seems like it has a really poor matchup into my team. The Zebstrika is, of course, a Zebstrika, and the Cryogonal, once again, I felt like it had a pretty poor matchup into my team overall, so was not expecting him to bring any of those Pokemon to this game. But having said that, we're going to keep it rolling by throwing it over to the team preview screen and taking a look at what he actually brought to the match. So here you can see the team preview screen. Of course, we have the six Pokemon that he brought to the game on the right-hand side, the six Pokemon that I brought on the left. And as you can see, he did decide to bring the Lucario, the Cryogonal, the Drifblim, the Mew, the Tinglu, and, of course, the Gouging Fire. So I did pretty almost fully predict the squad that he was going to bring to the game here, which was helpful, obviously. Although whether or not we could do anything about it is a different story, of course. But I was actually kind of surprised to see the Cryogonal. As I said, I didn't think he would bring that, but he did. So a little bit surprised not to see either the Azumarill or the Reverum. So that was the only really surprise there. The rest of the team, like I said, I pretty well anticipated. Looking at the Pokemon that I brought this week, of course, we're going to have the Arcanine, the Scizor, the Rotom Wash, the Gudra, the Alolan Ninetales, and of course the Sneasler. So this was actually the same six Pokemon that I brought to the game last week. This is the first time this season that I've done that. Now, I didn't actually do that on purpose. I actually played around with a bunch of different stuff going into this match, probably more so than any other week this season of the league so far. I toyed around with the possibility of bringing a lot of other Pokemon. Because my opponent this week did definitely have a very strong and versatile roster. But I ended up settling back on the same six from last week simply because I felt that they were the best Pokemon for the job as per the usual. So, having said that, we're going to go ahead and take a look at what actually happened in the match. And so here you can see, for those of you who haven't watched the game already, which I assume you all probably have watched it, but if you haven't, I would definitely recommend go checking it out. We did end up winning this game 2-0. It was a highly competitive affair, very close game. Definitely quite a lot of mind games on both sides, I think, and definitely a lot of both good and bad plays on both sides of the field in this one. But we did come away with the win 2-0, which is incredible for us, of course, obviously. That is much welcome, especially against an opponent the caliber of Emerald Miner. And so since we did win, I'm going to go ahead and name our game MVP here. And it was kind of close between a couple of different Pokemon, but I think the game MVP for this one has to be Sneasler. And the reason I say that is not only because Sneasler closed the game out for us, getting the final two kills and securing us the victory, but of course, During the game, toward the end of the game, when things looked pretty bleak, it was actually the fear of a choice Scarf Sneasler that actually saved us in this game, whereas my Sneasler was actually choice banned, but my opponent kind of um, thought that it was Scarf, and that ended up leading to predictions that ended up leading to our victory. So that was, of course, a great turn of events for us. As you guys might remember, if you've seen the game, I was a little in shock at the end of the game because toward the end of the match, there was an interesting sequence of events in the closing moments. So, um, basically what happened was I had the 3-2 advantage on my opponent. I have the Sneasler in against my opponent's Gouging Fire. And so I actually make a mistake and overpredict here, and I go for the U-turn because his last Pokemon were the Gouging Fire and the Driftbloom. So I make a mistake and overpredict because I think he's probably going to bring the Driftbloom in. So I U-turn, which does very minimal damage. It does get the Poison Touch, which was super helpful in the long run. But that leaves me open to my opponent setting up Dragon Dance, and so that kind of puts me in a bad situation. So after I have to switch out into Rotom, that gets KO'd, and now I'm in a situation where Gouging Fire outspeeds everything and can KO everything. So my only hope at that point is come back in with Sneasler, and either my actual plan in that situation was basically just to sack Sneasler off. Tongue twister, and then just hope that Scissors Bullet Punch was going to be enough to get the job done against the Gouging Fire and then potentially the Driftbloom. But my opponent kind of makes the same error that I did and overpredicts and switches out, which ends up leading to my victory. So, yeah, just a really crazy turn of events at the end of that game there. That was a lot to unpack, but yeah, I'd say for all of that, Sneasler has to be our game MVP this week. So, but yeah, we're going to go ahead and keep on moving here, and we're going to go over to, of course, the key takeaways this week. And so my key takeaways from this game this week are number one, I would say this was a pretty even match on paper. I think both my opponent and I had some really powerhouse Pokemon that kind of in some ways matched up well, but in some ways matched up not so well against our teams. So on his side, of course, he has stuff like the Gouging Fire, the Mew, the Lucario as a Terra Captain, obviously, Ting Lu especially. So just really powerhouse Pokemon that do match up against certain members of my team very well, but not the best against others. Versus on my side, of course, we have stuff like the Sneasler, the Alolan Ninetales, stuff that matches up very well against, again, certain Pokemon on his team, but not so much against others. So I would say it's a pretty even matchup on paper for that reason. But other takeaways here, I would say, would be I feel like I prepped okay for this game, and I also played it okay. What I mean by that is I think that my prep this week was nothing special. I aside from I guess one thing that I was particularly proud of, which was the Terra Ghost on the Gudra to counteract the Lucario, which did come in clutch, I will say. But be that as it may, I still, as a whole, don't think my prep was like super amazing this week. But it just, was difficult to prep for this opponent, as I said, because Emerald Miner is a very difficult competitor to face, and he also has a very strong and versatile team. So, yeah, it was definitely hard to prep for this one, and I don't feel like my prep was the greatest, but at the same time, it was good enough, and I guess that's good enough for this week. But I also thought that I played the game okay. So there were several moments in this game where, in hindsight, I feel like I, screwed up, obviously, and, either over predicted or just kind of did the wrong thing. Even from the early goings of the game and the opening moments of the game where I kind of made some good predictions in the sense of with the trying to play around the Mew with the Alolan Ninetales, so I didn't lose Alolan Ninetales or take big damage. Was well done, but then I kind of had to let the Arcanine go down early to the Mew, which in the opening moments of the game, I will say was a very difficult decision for me because I have Arcanine in against a +2 Mew that had hit a nasty plot, so it's a tough situation because I know I probably can't take an attack from that thing with Arcanine, and I know even a max attack, Life Orb boosted extreme speed is not going to be enough to take it out unless I Terra. So it's like I'm faced with a very difficult decision of do I burn my Terra early to ensure the Mew gets KO'd and ensure Arcanine lives, or do I just kind of roll the dice even though I know the odds are not in my favor that I'm going to take the Mew out or the Arcanine's going to survive. And in hindsight, I think that probably was the right decision, although it was a really bad decision to have to make, especially that early in the game. But it just kind of was what it was. But then, a little bit later on, I kind of left the Ninetales in against his Cryogonal for too long, letting it get flash cannoned and take a whole lot of chip that it otherwise probably shouldn't have had to take. So that's another big one. But at the same time, I did kind of get chip on the Cryogonal, which was useful. So, I don't know. That, I think, in hindsight, was not the best play. Stuff like that. And then, of course, we have the later on in the game, the play I already mentioned with the Sneasler over predicting. Um, but yeah, there was a lot of stuff like that in the game that I didn't feel like I played this game the best. But at the same time, I did have my moments in the game, such as like toward the end of the game with Sneasler obviously clicking, Throat Chop at the end of the game just in case he decided to overpredict and switch out into the Drifblim, which he did, which ended up winning us the game obviously. So plays like that were pretty good. And then also earlier in the game with the Rotom coming in to take out the Cryogonal with the Choice Specs boosted Hydro Pump, and then later in the game spamming Choice Spec boosted Volt switches once the Ting Lu was gone was nice. Although another kind of little mistake, kind of going back to the mistakes column here, because overall I feel like there were probably one too many more mistakes in this one than good plays. But yeah, so obviously there was a moment in the game where we had Terra Gudra, Terra Ghost Gudra versus Terra Steel Lucario, and in that situation, I let Gudra take a lot of unnecessary damage, again over predicting, leaving Gudra in on that Lucario to take multiple Life Orb boosted, Terra boosted bullet punches, which took a lot of damage away. Um, but it's like, again, over predicting, just thinking that he would predict the switch and go for something else. And it's like that's the thing about this game, I will say, is there was just a lot of mind games in this one. There was a lot of over predicting on both sides, I think, as he made his fair share of those decisions as well, obviously, especially the one at the end. um, but yeah, that would kind of lead me to that conclusion, of just kind of playing it okay, not the best, but not the worst. But additionally, in this game, I will also say the hacks in this game were positive but minimal, but they were in my favor, obviously, which is good. Um, the only ones I can really think of were we earlier in the game we got a crit Hydro Pump with the Rotom on the Cryogonal, which I don't think that mattered. I don't know his exact set in that situation, but I don't think it mattered because our Rotom was max special attack choice specs versus a 50% health Cryogonal. So I feel like it probably didn't matter, but I'm not 100% sure. Um, but additionally, then a little bit later in the game, where we made that over predict and U-turned with the Sneasler on the Gouging Fire, we got the Poison Touch, which was probably the only hack of the game that really kind of mattered, um, for sure, because that kind of put the Gouging Fire on a timer as he had no HP recovery on that set. So getting the poison there was pretty big because even though we made the mistake, it still kind of gave us some hope because, like I said, it kind of put the Gouging Fire on a timer, being poisoned and taking that chip damage every turn. And then again, a couple turns later, we get another Poison Touch actually on the Drifblim, although that didn't matter at all because we were going to be able to two-shot that with the Sneasler regardless. So yeah, we had a few hacks in our favor. Nothing super crazy, nothing that was like super blatantly swung the game in our favor, but yeah, it was definitely nice to have some positive hacks on our side. Then the last thing I would note here this week would be once again, with the victory, we build momentum for the Philadelphia Pidgeys going into the rest of the season here in the BHDL3. So that's obviously a big one for us always. It's a big key for us, is to just try to keep the momentum going here for us, try to continue to put the work in to get back to where we want to be here in the BHDL3. But Having said all of that, that is going to go ahead and bring us to our Week 5 game next week, of course. And that is going to be against the whimsical Whimsicots, coached by Sneezy Whims. So this is an individual who I've never played before. He is new to the BHDL, new to Draft League in general, although an experienced competitive battler, as I understand it. And on the screen here is a snapshot of his roster this season. So as you can see, very strong, very well-rounded roster here. Definitely going to be another difficult one for us heading into next week. But as I said, we're just looking to hopefully do the work here and try to, get to where we want to be in the league this season, and hopefully we can make it happen. So. But yeah, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching again, everyone. Hope you all enjoyed. Please hit that like button, leave a comment, and/or subscribe if you did enjoy, and stay tuned for more new videos in the future. So that's it, and we'll see you next time.